Stories of Great Christians.
From its radio studios in Chicago, the Moody Bible Institute greets its friends everywhere with Chapter 10 in the transcribed story of Peter Marshall, Chaplain of the United States Senate. This story is based on Catherine Marshall's biography, A Man Called Peter, published by the McGraw-Hill Book Company.
This is Catherine Marshall again. Or perhaps for the sake of a truer picture in this episode, I should say I am Catherine Wood. I had already met Peter Marshall. I'd heard him preach for 2 years in Atlanta and wanted to meet him from the very beginning. But for me, only a college student, to meet such a clergyman as Peter seemed almost impossible. We finally did meet when we both appeared at a Prohibition rally in North Georgia, I representing college students and he the church. He asked to see me again. 6 dates, 4 chaperones, and a dozen months later, we were engaged. How it came about, I still regard as one of God's nicest miracles, and the first clear evidence to me of God's hand in my life.
Miss Wood?
Yes. Oh, Miss Coleman.
Miss Wood, Dr. Marshall requested that I ask you to please wait till he's through talking with the people. He'd like very much to drive you back to Decatur.
Well, thank you, Miss Coleman.
You're welcome. Just call me Ruby, though. Everybody else does.
Catherine, I wish I had more time to see you. Really, I do.
You're a busy man, aren't you?
Busy? If it weren't for Ruby being such a conspirator, I'd never get to see you. I'm only thankful that you let me take you back to Decatur now and then.
Well, I'm not always so fortunate.
Catherine, you told me your father was a minister, did you not?
Yes. He's in Kaiser, West Virginia. I grew up there.
Mm-hmm. What do you plan to do in life, Catherine?
Well, I've been wondering about the answer to that myself.
You don't know?
Not exactly. I had thought of teaching. I'm majoring in English and education. But...
Yes? Go on.
Well, something you said in your sermon tonight startled me. I've never really asked God what He wanted me to do. I wasn't in the dark as to what Peter expected of the marriage relationship, for he'd made it quite clear what he thought about it. Oh, we hadn't gotten to talking about it yet, but he made references to it in his sermons.
Marriage is not a federation of 2 sovereign states. It's a union, domestic, social, spiritual, physical. It's a fusion of 2 hearts, the union of 2 lives, the coming together of 2 tributaries.
And Peter had made it quite clear what he thought of, well, career girls.
Modern girls argue that they have to earn an income in order to establish a home, which would be quite impossible on their husband's income. That is sometimes the case. But it must always be viewed as a most regrettable necessity, never as the normal or natural thing for a wife to have to do.
And what should the wife do?
The average woman, if she gives her full time to her home, her husband, her children, if she tries to understand her husband's work, if she tries to curb his egotism while building up his self-esteem, to establish around the family a circle of true friends, and if she provides in the home a proper atmosphere of culture, if she can do all this, she will be engaged in a life work that will demand every ounce of her strength, every bit of her patience, every talent God has given her. the utmost sacrifice of her love.
Anything else, Dr. Marshall?
Oh, I think that's all the correspondence, Ruby.
Dr. Marshall, how does a person know when he's in love?
Why, Ruby, I didn't know.
Now, you hush, young man. I just wondered how a bachelor like you explains such a condition to these young people who come to you to be married.
Well, I've asked them that question. I've asked it many times. And it's a very simple answer.
What is it?
You'll know. You'll always know when you fall in love.
Do you know, Dr. Marshall?
Huh? Oh, Ruby, that's a personal question.
I repeat, do you know?
I'll evade the issue. But I'll tell you this much. I've asked Miss Wood to review a book on prayer at Young People's Service next Sunday.
Peter first knew on a Sunday night in May 1936. After my talk, he spoke to me. There was profound respect in his eyes, and there was something else, too. A glint I hadn't seen there before and didn't quite know how to interpret. Peter lost no time in making a dinner date with me for the following Saturday night. Then we went into the evening service, and it was then I made my mistake, as it turned out. I sat within 3 pews of the front.
Before I get to the announcements of the week, I wish to state that I have just come from the Young People's meeting. It was a very wonderful service. I think some of you oldsters could refresh yourselves by a visit to our young people sometime.
Suddenly I felt
we heard a
quite
fine
ill.
talk on prayer
The
by
stone
Miss
pillars
Wood
and the Good
from
Shepherd
Agnes
window
Scott
behind the
College.
pulpit began
We
to
were all
swim
inspired.
alarmingly before my eyes.
I repeat.
I knew it would be disastrous to stay. As I rose to begin the longest walk in history, the voice from the pulpit trailed off. But I could feel Peter's eyes boring into my back every step of the way up that long aisle. But I had to leave somehow. I couldn't stay.
Dr. Marshall, I thought we came to lunch to discuss your sermon.
My mind is a blank, Ruby.
What is the matter?
Ruby, why is it I meet a wonderful girl like Miss Wood, and she walks out on me?
Oh, that's what you think. Perhaps she has another story, another explanation.
I don't know. She'll be graduating soon, won't she?
Next month, June.
And then she really will be gone. Back to West Virginia, no doubt, and out of my life.
Oh, look here. This is none of my business, Dr. Marshall, but you're not being yourself at all. Can't you do something about it?
Do something? What? I never thought, Ruby. Maybe I can.
Yes, come in.
The dean sent me over, nurse.
Did she give you a health service slip? Thank you. Oh, Catherine Wood. Well, you haven't been in the infirmary since your examination last fall. What's the trouble?
Well, nurse, I don't know how to explain. I'm sick to my stomach most of the time, and I can't seem to focus my eyes.
How long have you been feeling this way?
Since last Sunday.
Were you into town?
Yes. Why?
Oh, just curious. I think we can fix you up, Catherine. There's nothing to worry about, really. But we'll take your temperature, and perhaps you'd better stay in the infirmary for a day anyway. At least a day.
Yes?
Catherine?
Peter. Dr. Marshall. How did you know I was here? In the infirmary, I mean.
Miss Hopkins told me. I'm calling from her office. I'm coming over to see you.
Oh, you can't do that. This is off limits for men.
Miss Hopkins says it will be all right. I'm coming over.
Oh, no, you'd better not. Look, I think I'm well enough to dress and come over to see you. I'll meet you at the colonnade in 10 minutes.
Well, there you are. It was a very long 10 minutes.
Well, you couldn't have come to the infirmary, Dr. Marshall. I don't know how you ever talked Miss Hopkins into letting you.
But you've thwarted my chances for fame with all the future Agnes Scotters.
Well, maybe that's all for the best.
Catherine, let's sit down in the garden for a minute. It's so lovely here.
You love flowers, don't you?
I'm going to have a garden of flowers if it's the last thing I ever do. Catherine, I'm a Scotsman and not much good at beating around the bush. I came on an important mission.
Why, I am glad to see you.
When you walked out of the church last Sunday evening, I thought for a minute it was the end.
The end? Oh, I'm sorry about walking out like that. It was very foolish of me.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. But when I thought that perhaps I had lost you, I felt I couldn't go on. Perhaps you've guessed this already, but I've grown to love you, Catherine, over these months that we've known each other. I know it's too much to expect an answer from you today, but I want you to know how I feel. In my own bungling way, Catherine, I'm asking you to marry me.
I don't know what to say.
Can't you give me an answer? Well, I didn't think you could. Not right away.
I do think it would be best to wait, Dr. Marshall.
Will you call me Peter?
Peter? I'd like to follow what my heart dictates, but I don't know. You've dedicated your life to the chief. We both want what he wants for us, and I can't give you an answer just like that. Do you understand? I've got to wait. Got to pray.
Of course I understand, Catherine. I think God wants us to do that. And I sometimes think God places a dream in our hearts, so that when it matures, we find that God's will is ours, and ours is God's. Exams all over, Catherine?
I graduate in 2 days. I should say I will be graduating.
No nonsense. It's just an old rule of grammar. That's good news, Catherine.
Peter, there's something I must tell you.
Yes, Catherine?
You look so tired.
This that you must tell me, is it good or bad?
My answer is yes, Peter. I'll marry you.
Thank the Lord.
Why are you stopping, Peter?
Because, Catherine, this is the greatest day in my life, and I want to thank the chief.
So we conclude Chapter 10 in the transcribed story of Peter Marshall, Chaplain of the United States Senate. The story is based on Catherine Marshall's recent biography of her husband, A Man Called Peter, published by the McGraw-Hill Book Company. This is another in the series of Stories of Great Christians, which come to you from the radio studios of the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago.